So it looks like it's just 30 minutes of like tripe at the beginning, and then we've got some actual stuff. There's a big gameplay chunk in the middle. I suspect we won't watch all of it because it's hecking massive, and I'm probably going to get the point relatively quickly. I'm very interested in this. Seeing this is quite alarming. Bearing in mind, I use an extension that only shows me the dislikes of other people that have the extension. So I'm pretty certain the actual like to dislike ratio is negative. So this could be a little bit spicy, but we'll have to see. Let's jump into it, shall we? So, boop. And away we go.
My name is Adam Fletcher. I'm the community director here for Diablo, and I'm joined by two very, very familiar faces. Regular appearing people on Campfire.
Adam Jackson always looks so
their lead class designer, and Mr. Joey
like his last few appearances, he looks like he's about to just die.
I don't hate it. It's just it feels
like for Joe Shelley.
Like very few people have.
Yeah. Me, Tiffany Watt are
it makes you wonder, do they have enough staff?
Very big fans of Joey.
Like last epoch's what, 90 people?
Yeah, we have a big Campfire chat to talk about today.
Makes you wonder if the billion-dollar company actually hires enough staff.
Of course, we have our mid-season update, which is coming up really soon. In fact, it's coming next week.
I have thoughts on that. Subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, because I'm going to be doing a Diablo 4 review. It's going to be like an essay review.
I know it's been a long-anticipated feature
I have many thoughts
within Diablo 4, and that is the Gauntlet. So we'll be talking about the Gauntlet as well, and actually showcasing it here, because that does come with the mid-season update next week as well.
No dev company actually hires enough devs. True. We need more else to cosplay. We'll probably do it for a goal of some sort, maybe a sub goal or something.
Since the start of season 3.
I don't even know if I still have the dress. I did have it like a year or so ago.
Which was the one that included a way for players who actually
idea code base, not reality. True.
Craft Uber uniques. They can do that by creating resplendent sparks and then being able to craft the Uber uniques that they specifically want if they happen to find other ones.
I was watching Macro Bioboy's video on this, and he did a bunch of surveys of his community, and he basically realized that the only people that will benefit from the Uber uniques disenchanting salvaging system to get these materials are the people who are already farming hundreds of thousands of Diablo runs, kind of thing. So it didn't really... I feel like the Uber uniques are almost too rare for what they are, and the only real viable method to get them is to do the same thing over and over and over and over again on one boss. If they spread them out across like multiple pinnacle bosses, more bosses like Dareal, where he's not the only one-stop shop to get Ubers, that would make a massive improvement on its own. They could also like lower the drop rates, but also just increase the level of entry. Like you have to do a quest line, like a mini quest line to get to it. But when you do the pinnacle boss or whatever, you can feel like all that work is likely to resolve in an Uber unique, maybe not necessarily the one that you want, but an Uber unique. And again, you can target the pinnacle boss necessary. So I feel like this new system they've added kind of just did nothing. And even if they are lowering the materials required, it's still like a really high barrier of entry. And it's a casual game. They target a casual audience and then just throw like really, really, really not casual stuff into the game. It's like they don't know what they want.
And stuff. And so, but we do have a lot of new features coming into the actual mid-season update with 1.3.3. One really popular one coming back from season 2. I know you guys want to talk about it a little bit more right now.
Yeah, so we have vampiric powers returning from season 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
we obviously really like being able to bring back some of the malignant powers from season 1 in the form of the unique rings we have dropping from Varshan in season 2.
I hope they're not itemizing it
now
though.
as we're looking towards season 3,
I feel like it should be a system.
Back some of the vampiric powers that players really, really seem to like. We
thought cool. The malignant rings are okay.
In a slightly different form. I think Adam's going to talk about in a minute.
Yeah, we'll be going over all of them and which ones we brought back and what they do. You'll be able to see all of it in a little bit here.
Yeah, so I think we have a kind of a slide to start talking about our vampiric powers.
6 of them. Okay.
Yeah, so really we've got 6 vampiric powers that are really returning from the Season
Legendary
of Blood.
powers.
They're coming back this time as legendary powers instead of uniques. So unlike the unique greens, these are going to be legendary powers, just like any other legendary power that comes in the game.
I don't like that. I don't think they should be legendary powers. I think it should be like one. It would be thematic because obviously the entire point of season 2 or the theme of it was that you basically became a vampire, but because of the Lilith bloody flower petals in your stomach, you somehow didn't become like the minion of whatever his name was. I don't care. So I feel like they should add it as an actual system rather than having to compete with other legendary powers. Like I think they need to flesh out legendary powers and get more of them because there's some skills that literally just have one that benefits them. But then having to compete with this other like somewhat secondary theme in legendary powers, I think is a faux pas.
And they're not all exact one-to-one copies. They're really close to matching their previous functionality and kind of what you would expect them to do.
They added a system
but you know, we brought them
depth.
back in a way that's kind of evergreen, that they can be sustainable.
Yeah, they can fit in
for a
that
healthy
mix
version
and
of the
match
game.
format of the aspect system, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, so the ones we got here that are returning, you've got Accursed Touch, Blood Boil, Hectic, Metamorphosis, a fan favorite, Moonrise, and the Undying. You can see a few of them here being played out.
Just in case if you forgot from season 2.
Yeah.
Here's some of the fan favorite ones. And of course, everyone
Like
loves
they're all
Metamorphosis.
vampire themed. It's like,
one.
Yep.
Being able to turn into
why isn't it a
bats,
separate
essentially
system?
invade through enemies. But as you mentioned, they're coming back as these legendary aspects, legendary powers.
So again, there's up to 20 to 35% chance for your skills to inflict vampire curse on enemies. Enemies afflicted with vampiric curse are also vulnerable. Sure. Stored souls, increased damage. Okay. When your core skills overpower an enemy, you spawn 3 volatile blood drops. Collecting a volatile blood drop causes it to explode. Physical damage around you. Every 20 seconds, your next skill is guaranteed to overpower. At least they're marking it as physical. Like, there's a lot of powers they've added in the game. Like, I think tornadoes and earthquake, you don't technically know what element type they are, so you don't know what to scale with them. So I'm glad they've explicitly said it's physical damage. When you cast a skill, you heal. Double this bonus below 50% life. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so here we're going to show you the exact text so you can, you know, screen cap that, figure out all the exact differences between these and what's in Season 2. Largely the same, a few differences. The biggest one, I think, you'll see in the next screen is Metamorphosis. Obviously, it's really, really strong.
When you evade, you turn into a cloud of bats, becoming unstoppable for 2.5 seconds. Enemies along your path take physical damage and are inflicted with vampiric curse. Evade's cooldown is increased by 5 to 10 seconds. Okay. Did it used to stun before? Can't remember. I feel like it used to stun before, so I'm guessing that's what they removed to make it less OP. Otherwise, everyone would have it. It was silly strong. Damaging an enemy with basic skill grants you 4% attack speed for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Upon reaching maximum stacks, you enter a vampiric blood rage, gaining basic skill and movement speed for 10 seconds. Isn't there already something like that? I may be misremembering, but I feel like there's something already like that for legendary powers. After casting 5 basic skills, one of your active cooldowns is reduced by 3.8 seconds, or 2 to 4 seconds. Okay. I feel like the basic stuff is pretty much wank, unless you're like a druid and you're doing the lightning werewolf or werebear build, whatever it is, like the lightning shred one.
So now it's coming back, but it's going to increase the cooldown of your evade.
Yes,
like
kind of
having
like
a generator and then a spender just
increases your armor,
feels
but
kind
also
of
increases the duration
to
of your
me
evade time.
overall.
Yes, very similar. So,
like
you know, you
these-
got a little bit of a kiss curse
Yeah,
there.
that light effect, that choice for players to choose. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Mid-season
So
updates.
yeah, next going into what our updates are, we've got kind of our generic updates here. So the first one a lot of people have been talking about is snapshotting. We've heard a lot of cases from people they brought up where snapshotting is a thing that's been reported to us. And to give a little bit of a kind of a high level view of what snapshotting
Completely
is, and not
removing it.
everybody is very familiar.
Okay.
Snapshotting is this idea that when you get a buff, let's say a damage buff, you're able to hold on to that buff for a longer duration than it would normally last if you use it on a skill that is like channeled or lasts a really, really long time. So a simple example, this would be like the Barbarian's Whirlwind. If let's say I got a 50% damage buff and it lasts for 4 seconds, if I have that buff on me the moment I channel Whirlwind, it'll keep that buff going until I cancel Whirlwind because I had it when it started. And so if I keep my Whirlwind going forever, I'll keep that 50% damage buff way beyond the normal 4-second time. If the game didn't have snapshotting, then it would just last for 4 seconds, whether or not I started Whirlwind when I had it, and that would be how long I would be doing the bonus damage.
Makes sense, yeah.
So in general, when it comes to snapshotting, we want to really remove it from the game as much as we can. It does allow for some kind of cool things, but generally snapshotting is used to do really kind of undesirable behavior, whether it's unequipping
I can agree with
at
that.
certain times or using certain effects at certain times.
In most
to get
instances,
way
it's
more power than
essentially
a player
like a soft
should normally
exploit.
be able to be, and it results in the things like people gathering up a ton of buffs and then like one-shotting a
You
boss
can
or
do
things
some
like
cool
that,
shit though. Like if
in
you
unintuitive
work it out, you're like,
ways.
oh, I've
So
worked that out. That's really
we fixed
cool.
every case that's been
But in
reported
most
to us so
instances,
far,
it
and we'll
becomes like the
continue to,
meta,
and we're
and
going to
just
move
ends
toward
up
more of a systemic approach
being
to
too strong.
taking it out. Also for the gauntlet, because we know that a few people were concerned about the gauntlet and how snapshotting would be able to work there. In the gauntlet, your gear, the skill tree, and the Paragon board cannot be changed. So you can't do
so
any
they're
weird
making it
things of
quite
unequipping,
competitive is
re-equipping
what
legendaries or things
I'm
like that
feeling.
to try and gain an advantage.
Which makes sense, I suppose.
What you bring into the gauntlet is basically going to be locked. So it'll be a fair place for people to compete. And lastly, more generic thing, but the Rogue, we found an issue where the Weapon Mastery passive was double dipping on critical strike damage bonuses, particularly when you mixed Weapon Mastery and the Precision Key passive. Players were able to do way more damage than was intended. So that is another bug fix that is coming in.
Rogue
in
OP.
this patch. All right, so next let's get into our first round of the class updates. First, we're going to start with the Seneschal construct.
Yeah, the Seneschal class.
Yeah, the Seneschal class.
Yeah.
Yes.
So really, we've resolved quite a few different bugs and also reduced the power of some things that were overperforming. The first one is that when you used basically AoE buffs like the Barbarian Warcry or the Druid's Bloodhowl, the Seneschal would be double dipping in the amount of bonus that it would get, damage bonus. So
The way I read that, I was like, wait, you don't class it as an ally
and next
and
we
don't
did
think it
quite a
should have
bit
Warcry,
of
but if it was double dipping,
updates to
fair.
some of the tuning stones. The Poison Support Tuning Stone isn't going to be reapplying the base damage when it spreads. It's going to match more the functionality of other kind of damage over time tuning stones. The Bleeding and Burning
Wasn't the
Support
construct
tuning stones were a
shit,
little bit
and then they
overpowered, so
buffed
we're
it
reducing the
because
power of those
hardly
a little bit
anyone
as well.
liked it? It feels like it's
And
kind
then
of
lastly, the
arbitrary
Tempest
to
Governing Stone
make these
was
fixes.
basically resulting in a situation where you could get unlimited damage bonuses by it constantly bouncing and getting more and more and more. And so now it's no longer going to get
Like,
bonus
was it
damage
OP
duration
in the
when
end?
it
I
spreads. It's just
stopped
going to
playing,
spread
to
and
be
do that
honest,
base
after like
amount
a
of
week or
damage.
so.
All right, so next let's get into the class updates. So we're going to start with the Barbarian. And again, we've got
Okay.
stuff for every single class. Right now, I'm
First
sure...
bullet, very powerful.
Very powerful.
Yeah, Barbarian's pretty good right now.
As
That
many
is
of you,
something
I'm
that
sure
is
know,
very obvious.
the Barbarian's pretty good right now.
Yeah.
A lot of people really like Charge, it turns out. It's a really strong skill.
Yes.
It's a fun skill.
Probably the biggest update you're going to see here, the next bullet
Horrible
point,
in
is that
Legions
we're
though,
not
because
really
every
planning to nerf Charge in
motherfucking
this
barb
patch.
is moving
Before we
everything
had talked
everywhere, and you're
about
like,
kind
let
of
me
our
hit
bar
stuff.
For what we would consider to be too strong in the game, where we would nerf in a mid-season patch. Charge is like right up there, and we talked a lot as a design team and made a call that we were going to keep it for the rest of the season. So we know it's really, really good. It's really, really strong. A lot of people.
I mean, they
having a
did
lot
the
of fun
same
with
thing with
it.
Ball Lightning, didn't
We
they?
could have gone either way on this, so
expected.
we're open to feedback of what the community thinks. But now with the launch of the Gauntlet, we're going to keep it in and kind of see how it rides out. We've been seeing over time that other classes have found things that are also really, really powerful too.
It has become the flavor of the month, though. Like every barb is playing it.
Goes. But in addition to that, we've got some changes coming for Barbarian. We still get feedback that a lot of their early game is kind of tough. So we're going to be buffing up a lot of their basic skills to make the early game go a little bit smoother.
Early game is tough because you have this
and then we're also doing some
generator
buffs to some
spender
other
system.
used skills
Get
and
rid of it.
upgrades. There's
Just
some
make interesting
examples here.
skills.
We've got Strategic Ground Stomp. The ultimate cooldown reduction is being
You already
doubled
have
from 1 to 2
cooldowns
seconds.
and
One of
resource
the Iron Skin
management.
upgrades
You don't need
and the upgrade
generators.
to Call of the Ancients is just getting a number increase. And Gore's Devastating Grip. So this is kind of has a
Familiar
storied history in our game. Yeah, it was really, really good when the game launched. And now we brought it down quite a bit, and now we're increasing its power a little bit again to bring back Whirlwind builds. So the ranks of Whirlwind are going up from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3, and we're increasing the amount of the explosion damage a little bit there as well. So really, when it comes to what you look
Okay.
for to the Barbarian, it's really everything.
Is the
'cause we're not
issue
nerfing
with
charge,
Whirlwind
but also
not
their
that just
early
other
game
builds are
Whirlwind
too
builds will
strong
be a
though?
little bit better as well.
The
And again,
Whirlwind's
when
still
we're going through all these
stupid
updates
strong.
for the classes,
It
this
will always
isn't
be
everything
strong.
that is going in that we're showing you. You'll be able to see the patch notes very soon, but this is just a sneak peek of some of the things that are happening. So there is a little bit more for everything, I think, than what we're showing today.
Okay.
So next we got the
Patch notes it
Sorceress.
is then.
So Incinerate is a skill that we know people have had kind of a hard time really getting a lot of effectiveness out of. So we're increasing basically everything across the board. The damage is going up. All of its upgrades are going up. So Incinerate players should be rejoicing. We've also got quite a few buffs to Conjuration
The only way to
skills
fix
coming
Incinerate
in.
is to
So,
allow you
for
to move
people that
when you're
like using
casting it. The fact that you have
Conjurations.
to stand still to channel it is
And
why
then
people
also
are going to
some buffs
avoid
to
it.
really generically
The
use
game is
underused passives
supposed to be
and
fast
Paraglyphs.
or
So really
played
across
fast.
the
That's
board,
how
you're just going to see
the
some buffs
players
and various
enjoy it.
things.
So stopping and standing still
So
to
here
cast an
again, for
ability
sword
for a long
players,
time just
Incinerate
isn't
and really Conjuration
fun
are the
or
things that you have
viable.
to look forward to. And next we've got the Druid.
They also
We've
need
got
to move
quite a
away from
few,
the stonks meme.
powerful
It's been
things
played out.
coming. So similar to the Barbarian, you know, the Druids, we've gotten feedback that they kind of, you know,
boomer
they have
energy.
a really, really strong late game, but their early game getting there can be a little bit tedious to go. So we're buffing a lot of their basic skills. We gave an example here for the Druid with Wind Shear. So you can see here the Spirit generation is going up, the damage is being increased, and the Wild Wind Shear upgrade, which gives you more Spirit when you hit enemies, is also going up. So really just better resource management in the early game. And then
They need to
Companion Druid.
if
So
they're not going to get rid of the
hear from
whole
players that they
basic
really want to
skill
make a companion
generator
build
spender
really
thing, they need
work
to
and feel good.
massively buff basics.
So we've got some damage buffs
to
across the
generate
board
a
for all
lot
the
more
companions,
resource.
particularly Wolves is getting quite a bit stronger. But we've got things for
That'll be
Wolves,
good.
Poison Creeper,
I
and
know a lot
Ravens.
of people really wanted to do companion and
And then we've
like
got
minion
some
builds
additional buffs to some underused passives.
that are actually viable for endgame.
And then last but not least, the Storm's Companion unique. So this is the one that makes your wolves howl when they do some lightning damage in an AoE. The ranks of wolves that you're getting is going to be increased from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And then also the Storm Howl damage, that happens when the lightning bolts come down, is being increased by a lot.
Okay.
And so you could see
But now,
here.
that's now the mandatory
Yeah,
unique
so
companion
you know,
builds.
before it was doing like, you know, in this example at this level, like 100 to maybe 400 damage,
Glad it got
150 to
buffed, though.
400. And now it's going to be doing closer to 8 to 1300 damage per strike. And these things strike multiple times too, and in an AoE. So it's actually quite a bit of an increase. So really, as far as Druids, your early game will feel better for pretty much every build, and then Companions, and especially...
Like, this is probably something I'm going to cover in my like Diablo 4 review. I'm probably going to wait until we've got Season 4, because Season 4 is going to probably, in my mind, going to be like the make or break for Diablo 4. They're either going to lose all of the like consistently returning players to other games, such as especially now Last Epoch's out for $35 or whatever. But they're either going to lose all those players and be stuck with like casual Andes who probably don't spend that much money statistically, or they will reinvigorate the game. It's going to have to be massive. So that's when I'm probably going to do the Diablo 4 review. But one of the things I think they need to fix is there's no choice in Diablo 4. You pick a build, you pick a skill, and then there's very, very obvious and often only one item for each slot that is relevant to that skill. So all the choices that you would otherwise make in other games where you're like, oh, do I want that unique, or would that one be better? Or I'm going to have to think about it because this can synergize with this, and this can synergize with that and that, and these can subsequently synergize. There isn't any of that. There's no difficult choices to make, which makes build crafting exciting because you then experiment more and try things out. Whereas in Diablo 4, you go, oh, I'm playing the Fireball Sorceress, so Gloves of the Illuminator it is, kind of thing. It's like, I'm playing Twisted Blades Rogue, so I'll get the Blade Dancer aspect and things like that. There's no choice. So now with this Storm's Companion unique, everyone who's playing Companion builds is going to use that one. Every single person. They need to give people choices. Let them be creative.
Wolves are going to be quite a bit more powerful. Next, we've got the Rogue.
Oh.
So we've got Heartseeker and Force Foyer. Their attack speeds are being increased. So, you know, when it comes to basic skills,
Okay.
a lot of people
Cool.
gravitate to Puncture. It's really, really strong. It applies vulnerable, but also you're able to stutter step, and it feels really good when you cast it.
And you're just throwing knives.
Yes, and
Throwing
knife throwing
knives
is
is rad,
cool. I can't give everyone knives on every skill, but I
It's
also
mostly
think
for the
arrows are kinda
vulnerable.
cool.
I just
It
give
literally is
ears
mostly for the vulnerable.
for knives and everything.
Maybe knives
Vulnerable
on
is
the
still
arrows.
super strong.
I don't know. But anyways, as far as how it feels to use, the 2 arrow skills should feel exactly the same as puncture as far as how you're able to stutter step, how quickly you're able to cast them. They've been made to match. And then we also heard some feedback that Flurry isn't really feeling as good compared to the other core skills, so we're increasing its damage.
Wasn't
and then
Flurry
we're also
like OP
improving
at
the
one
functionality
point?
of both of
Like
its
I swear it
upgrades.
was
They're
like
just going to be a
one of
little
the
bit more
go-to
useful.
melee builds.
And then Precision, everybody's favorite new change in Season 3. We're actually going to be reducing the stacks required for bonuses from 6 to 4. So this is a buff to Precision. It's really meant to help with actually the rhythm and the way that you feel when you cast it. That
That's
how
fair.
often you get the proc should just feel a little bit better to use when you're using it in combination with other skills. And then last but not least, we got the aspect of branching volleys. We're kind of redesigning or upgrading this legendary quite a bit. This is with Barrage. When your Barrage arrows bounce, they do more damage, but now we're actually
I
adding a
think
little bit more
Barrage
to it.
is underrated. It's basically
So
a
you can
shotgun.
see here on the left is kind of the old version, which basically said that your arrows had a chance to split into 2 arrows whenever they ricochet. And, oh, I love that zoom in.
Oh, yeah.
So now on the right, firstly, it's going to increase just the base damage of ricocheting arrows from Barrage.
Okay.
And then also they still keep that chance to split into 2, but that chance has also been increased by quite a bit.
Yeah.
So really this legendary just wasn't very powerful or being used very much.
Okay, that's a good
And now it
change.
should be quite a bit better.
But again, now it's the best in slot, and everyone's going to use
So
that
yeah,
for
as
these
far as
Barrage.
things to look forward to, really ranged
no
builds
choice.
I think are going to feel pretty good, and then Flurry as well is getting quite a big increase. And last but not least, we have the Necromancer, and we have a lot to cover here with Necromancer, so hold on to your butts here. So first we got minion buffs.
block, just minion buffs.
Giant block of text here.
Okay, that's good.
So really their damage is being increased by
Minions
about
is in
20%
demand.
just across all minions. Their health is going up by about 10%. A lot of their passives here you can see are being increased. We've got Hellbent Commander, Cult Leader. Corporeal is a pretty big one, I think, that you'll be able to look forward to. So before it was that you and your minions just deal increased physical damage. Now it's also going to be giving you increased move speed for every active minion.
Yes.
So-
Do the
Necromancer's
minions
rechoice.
get the move
minions
speed?
do
I haven't
move
played a
speed,
lot of
move-
Necro.
Catching up with their army and vice versa as they go through the game. We also fixed an issue with Skeletal Reapers where they were spawning too few corpses, so now they're
The
going
way
to
you
be
said that
giving a lot
implies
more
yes.
corpses when you take that upgrade.
Like movement speed on minions
and
is
also
actually
just talking about
more
minions
damage
a little bit.
because it means they
Minions
get
is one
to
of our
where
big
you're trying to
priorities
attack.
to kind of
sooner.
feel really good. We think that the issue with minions is not just that they're not dealing enough damage, but also we want to increase kind of the cool factor and the way that you engage with them, particularly the golem. So we do have quite a bit more coming in Season 4 that I wanted to let everybody know about. But this is kind of a little bit of a taste of what we've
Hopefully
planned to
that's
do.
initial
commands
volley
and
of
commanding them
The
to
initial
focus their
volley of
target or
changes,
something.
yes. We
Because
have a
I
lot
don't think
coming
that's the
in
thing, is
Season
it?
4 in addition to this.
I've really not played Necro since before.
And then next, we've got also buffs and functionality adjustments to a bunch of other things. One example here with a passive is spiked armor. It kind of makes sense that it would give you armor. So now it's also going to give you armor in addition to thorns. Death's
Makes
Reach
sense,
is
sure.
a passive that we're redesigning completely. It used to be that you dealt more damage to enemies that are far away. Now we're changing it to be Death's Advance, which really just gives you move speed. So now
Sure, movement speed is
generically,
strong.
Necromancer
I
players will
appreciate
have a way to just put 3 points in a passive
And
gain
distant
additional
enemies is
move
a
speed
shit
more than other classes.
great.
Affix that no one wants.
And then we've also got some core skill buffs.
far too niche and
particularly
almost
to
impossible
Blight,
to
Blood
take
Surge, and
advantage of.
Sever. There's some number buffs, and I think even some like functionality and other tweaks to make the bulk of them feel a lot better.
That'll be good.
So really, when it comes to Necromancer players, movement speed is the name of the
I
game
might
here.
actually play
and
Necro in
also
Season 4.
minion
Who
builds
knows?
should feel quite a bit better than before. And lastly, we wanted to talk with you all a little bit about how we do our updates and the timing of them. We've run into a issue, not really an issue, but a situation that happens pretty commonly. So normally when we think about updates, in our last live stream, we talked about how, we kind of made a promise with you that at the start of every season, every class was going to get at least 1 new legendary and 1 new unique. And what happens sometimes is we'll have a new legendary or a new unique in the pipe, and we have a cool idea, we've made a new design for something, like I'll give an example, let's say Fireball Sorcerer, right? We have a really cool new legendary for Fireball Sorcerer that we've put in, we've play tested it, it's ready to go, but we don't have a new legendary for every other class to go with it, right? And we kind of run into the situation where we have to decide, like, is it okay to put something into the game when one class will get more than other classes, right? We tend to try and keep things mostly equal when it comes to these updates. And so we kind of wanted to hear your feedback a little bit. of would you be okay and would it be cool with the community if when we have more than the equal amount of other classes of updates to do, that we just put them in when they're ready, or should we wait until everybody kind of has parity on things?
That's a good
question. The other
question.
situation where this comes up quite a bit is where, like, we know that a build really needs some help. Like, I'll use Frozen Orb as an example, right? Where Frozen Orb, we want to make a new playstyle for Frozen Orb, and we want to add like 2 legendaries and a unique to really make this thing sing, right? Like, just adding one power isn't enough to make this whole playstyle work. And so would it be okay if, you see in the patch notes in the season that Sorcerer gets, 2 uniques and 4 legendaries and everybody else just gets 1, but we've enabled this really cool thing? Or do you think it's smarter for us to just kind of wait until every class can get a cool new thing?
It's a good question, but then that follow-up kind of... With PoE, and probably with Last Epoch, when they release skills, they release them in bulk, because every class can benefit from the skills in one way or another. So it's not just a case of, oh, we've released a thing and it's specifically for the Deadeye or for the Gladiator or for the Slayer or whatever. It's usually something where people look at it and then they consider how they could use it with a build they want to play. In Diablo 4, like I mentioned moments ago, you get a unique item that is very hyper specific to that one skill and ends up being best in slot for that one skill. So if they did do like 2 legendary powers and a unique for Frozen Orb, everyone who plays Frozen Orb is going to use those 3 things. There's no choice again. It becomes the flavor of the month again. I would say, personally, I would prefer if they did lots of things in bulk and just released it all in bulk. But that would also be in a fleshed out game that's already got a lot of variety, a lot of choice. Diablo 4 isn't currently that. So part of me just kind of wishes they get as much out as possible. If it's ready, get it out, pad out the game, flesh it out. But that's not a philosophy I'd want them to have all the time. If Diablo 4 gets into a state where it's actually retaining like non-casual players for longer than a week or so each like 3 months, then I would prefer if they were like, here's loads of uniques, here's the sandbox that you want to make sandcastles in, let's see what you can come up with. But if they just go, oh, here's all the stuff for the sorceress that is to do with Frozen Orb, then everyone that season or at the time it's released plays only that. And then, like I said, they're all playing the exact same build anyway. So it's... I think it's actually important to see people in the world playing other builds. Like when you see every Barb playing Charge Barb, it just makes the class fantasy feel really dumb, because then if you're not playing Charge Barb, you feel silly for not playing it, because you know everyone's playing it because it's so strong, because it's the flavor of the month. It was the same with the Lightning Ball. I think down the road, for sure, they should just do a whole bunch of stuff in bulk, like here's a bunch of new uniques, here's a bunch of loads of new legendary aspects, and more than just 1 or 2 to make a build come online, because again, that's the devs defining a build for you. So it's not giving the player any agency to create their own builds. They're just being told what to play. And it's the itemization in Diablo 4 hinders their ability to do that in the first place and be like, here's lots of things. It needs an overhaul, man. I hope itemization in Season 4 really does get fixed. That's another influence as well. If the itemization is actually interesting and is more than just, here's 1 unique for the skill that you've chosen to play, or here's 1 aspect for the skill you've chosen to play, then that could completely change my opinion on how they do it. But I don't see that happening. In fact, I've got a feeling they're going to do completely the opposite of what players actually want, because they've done it a few times when they've had feedback. Like the skill trees, for example, when they were like, everyone was like, it's a skill twig. They knew this back in 2019. Joe Shelley even quoted the meme. He was like, yeah, people are referring to it to a skilled twig rather than skilled tree. Do you know what the response to that was? They drew a real fucking tree. They actually just did artwork of a big ass tree, and it was just as shallow as it was before. And everyone was like, what the fuck are you doing? It's a cool looking tree, but what are you doing? And now they're still really, really shallow. And there's been a couple of other things. I'll put it all in the review, but like I'm actually concerned that when it comes to the itemization, they're probably going to make it even shallower, and they're just going to take out some of the more like they've latched onto the damage on Tuesdays meme, which is more about like get rid of the arbitrary requirements for dealing damage and modifiers and stuff like that. But you can still have interesting and complex modifiers, and I've got a feeling they're just going to be like, here's more things that make damage number go up. Hopefully they add more interaction stuff into it. That's like, that's fingers crossed what I hope they do, but we'll see.
Of that equivalent.
Slight rant there. Apologies.
The game. So we're open to feedback here. We're going to be looking at Reddit and forums and other places, kind of what you think. But we're kind of leaning towards just putting things in when they're ready. But we want to.
I suspect most people are just going to say add it when it's ready because they just want more stuff in Diablo 4 altogether.
Yeah, get some feedback. We're interested in this.
Yeah. So I, post live stream, or I know we know that the conversations will come up regarding this specific topic, and so we'll be looking around and kind of gathering community feedback on like what you guys prefer, and kind of going with that, and listening in on what you guys actually want us to do. So please chime into different conversations that you guys see related to that topic, because we'll most definitely be checking it out.
I'm going to 3D print that little statue soon.
And this is just a small, as Adam mentioned, this is just a small piece of what we're actually including in the mid-season update. The full patch notes are actually going to be out tomorrow. So we'll end up posting all those before the weekend, and players can check out the full entire patch notes. And
Bayo one looks sick as well.
Mid-season update.
See if I can get that maybe.
Vampiric powers also includes Gauntlet, which we're about to showcase here. So it's a pretty beefy mid-season update. And just to remind people as well, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, there's a lot of changes in this mid-season update. What we talked about at the beginning of Season 3 is like the cadence of how we plan on doing these updates. We plan on doing pretty significant changes, of course, at the start.
I don't think they're in a position to add content mid-season, because most people have already left.
Take the time to evaluate, and
it's not going to bring them back.
Pretty significant changes in mid-season updates.
Like I think I hope the Gauntlet's going to be cool
since the start of the season.
I suspect it will be.
Once we get into a new season, things change again, and meta changes.
Everyone's going to be playing Last Epoch. Let's be real. Like people played for a week and then they've moved on, just like they do even in the good seasons, like Season 2.
For instance, that we'll be monitoring feedback if something does come up that is like absolutely like breaking or whatever, that we may end up making a tweak on based off of community feedback. But that is typically the cadence that we had talked about at the beginning of the season, and we just want to remind players like, you can always expect these big moments during the beginning,
especially with all the delays as well.
For itself.
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. So the next thing we did want to talk about is the Gauntlet. This is a long anticipated feature. It is the leaderboard feature essentially within Diablo 4. And we actually have a cool showcase that we want to show you guys here. We have 3 different devs that are.
We're going to show you a showcase.
We're going to show you a showcase.
Just this once.
Showcase. But we have 3 different devs that are going to be joining us, and they're going to be running through their build specifically through the Gauntlet itself. And we are joined by 2 Diablo partners, 2 Diablo content creators who are going to be commentating through this. This is Anacake Live and Macro Bioboy. Thank you guys very much for helping us out here. And our 3 devs are going to be, of course, from here within Irvine. So they'll be playing live here within the studio. Irvine, California.
Yep.
And so we actually have John Constable, who is on the engineering team here for Diablo 4. We have Liam Kerr, who's a associate class designer on the design team here for Diablo 4. And we have Steven Stewart, who some people may recognize as Leviathan, a former Diablo content creator, or maybe still a Diablo content creator. He's like behind the camera, I don't know, who will also be running through his build through the Gauntlet, so you guys can actually check it out. But what we do want to do is we do want to hand it off to Anacake Live and Macro Bioboy, who will be running us through some of this Gauntlet stuff. And then we'll come back and we'll give you guys a few little updates about Season 4 and do some Q&A. So Macro, Anna, take it away.
Thank you so much, Adam. Hi everyone. I am Anna Cake Live, and I'm
Hi, Anna.
incredibly happy to be here today. And together with my friend Macro, I'm happy to first time see and comment on the showcase of the Gauntlet.
Hi, everybody. I'm Macro Bioboy. I'm your friendly neighborhood necromancer. Yeah, Anna, this is wildly exciting. It's so great that the players finally get to get their eyes on what we're going to be expecting coming out next week. We have the Gauntlet Showcase, 3 amazing developers. These people, they're going to show you all the stops, and we're going to be able to help to kind of bridge the gap, bring you some of
I
that
don't need to
information
watch
about
the entire
mechanics that are
showcase, do I,
going
chat?
on, what you're actually seeing, and what you can expect as
I assume
well.
it's just the
So it
gauntlet
looks
3
like,
times.
first off, and I'm already incredibly excited for this because you know I'm a necro boy here, we're going to be showcasing Liam Kerr on the Bone Spear Necromancer. This is like the build I'm the most excited for, and it looks like we're actually all set to hop right in. So let's go ahead and give him a
Let's
second
go.
to hop into the gameplay here.
Here we go. And guys, we just started the Gauntlet. The first thing that we see the boss, and we just skip the boss. The Necromancer is just running, skipping the boss, proceeding into the dungeon, and apparently trying to get, I already see, here is the first shrine. Macro, tell me something about this shrine and about this necromancer. I know that you definitely want to share with us everything that we need to know about this necro.
Absolutely. So before I get like too deep into the
123
Necromancer,
plus.
let's basically just talk about what you're looking at in the Gauntlet. We
it's
have 8
easier
minutes to get the
than
highest score possible. Every monster that
level
you kill,
100
every
nightmare
boss that you
dungeons?
kill, as well as some chests that we're going to see later on,
In theory?
are going to be dropping proofs of might. This is basically what you're getting, that teal score there on the right side. And it's speed, utility, and strategy is what we care about the most here. Monsters are going to be level 124, so this is similar to a Nightmare Dungeon 70 in difficulty. That means that you don't have to worry as much about survivability or crazy damage numbers. You need to be doing just enough to be able to kill things as you run and gun. Specifically to your question about the pillars that we're seeing here, these unique shrines in the Gauntlet itself, we have 2 new additions to the game. One is going to be a shrine that's going to respawn all of the monsters in the dungeon. That's right, it's not just about getting through the dungeon as fast as possible, it's about getting through it multiple times over.
Okay.
Secondly, we have another shrine which is actually going to increase how much score you get whenever you complete any of those objectives that I just saw. And then right there, we actually have the return of normal shrines as well. These are going to be dropping off the bosses. Anna, what can you tell us more about these shrines and what people need to worry about strategizing with them?
Oh yeah, that's the whole, this Gauntlet, it's all about the strategy. The shrines gonna be always the same, they're gonna appear in the same places. And the shrines that gonna be dropping from the bosses, that also will be the same. Then you need to plan your trip through the Gauntlet. Are you gonna kill the boss? Are you planning to use those shrines? When are you planning to use those shrines? Once again, the shrines, the special shrines from this Gauntlet, they will be either resetting all the monsters in the dungeon, and here we see our necromancer just killed the boss first time, resetted this boss, and he's going back and killing him again and getting a lot of proofs of might, increasing his score. By the way, necromancer current score is already 58k. We are going not bad. We are progressing further in the dungeon. The map will always stay the same in this dungeon. It will stay the same for a week, so you can plan your path. You can always choose your way how you will be progressing in this dungeon. And here we see the second shrine,
okay.
the second pylon our necromancer touched.
Again, this I like the idea of this. The casual player is going to hate it,
on and on about
which
this
is
build. I think this is basically going to be everybody's first attempt at what the best meta approach to this content is. Bone Spear has a lot of great mobility as well as ability to spread damage across the battlefield.
Communities
so
will
whether you're
love this.
running past monsters
Like
and
people who are in speedrunning,
kind of training
even for content,
along,
it'll probably do
players
well.
of Diablo
Like
3
for
have seen
like
similar strategies and greater
YouTube
rifts,
and
kind of bringing all your
content or
monsters
whatever.
together before you waste any time actually
but
killing them.
most of the player base isn't going to do
whether or not
this.
you're just like front loading all your damage and blasting through bosses,
the
that you have
loot
that
isn't
shrine
good enough or
moving
whatever or
forward.
something to that effect.
Like here we have the blast wave shrine, right? This basically means that the necromancer will be able to kill as they run, not worrying about having to spend any animation time actually casting their spells themselves. And I think that this is something that people are going to want to really tune into. Not only is the gauntlet the same every single week, so literally every monster is going to be in the exact same place. Every time that you kill a monster that drops one of the keys, those are going to be in the exact same place too. So like I said before, it's not just about doing a lot of damage, being very fast. It's about picking every single time you spend any time at all, casting a skill, doing damage, or moving.
Yeah,
And
so
I
every time
definitely
you
think that
play it,
Bone
you
Spear
play,
Necromancer
okay,
is
let's pick the
uniquely
perfect
positioned in
route,
this way
and you
to be
learn
able to
from your
keep
previous
that
attempt.
constant momentum and damage.
It's only
output.
over a week, so unless you know life in the game.
Your Necromancer is doing absolutely stunning. Really, really good. Current score we have 141k. We are going absolutely not bad. And guys, you can see in the corner there are the keys. We don't have yet any keys, but hopefully we're gonna get them soon. You probably also saw that in this dungeon there are special chests. White chests, and a little bit later I think we're gonna see also yellow chests. The chests, obviously, they have a lot of proof of mights. They're helping you to increase your total score. To get the
Oh,
keys,
okay.
you need to kill some special monsters. The monsters are staying the same, but when you're entering the dungeon, you don't know which monster it is. You will also have to first run a couple of times through the dungeons, kill all the monsters, find out who is actually dropping.
Wait, hold up. So the entire point of the gauntlet is to learn the layout, learn your strategy for blasting through the layout, learning where the monsters are, ascertaining how to capitalize on killing and optimizing killing the most that you can, and like resetting it and whatever with the shrines. That all makes sense because you can learn that because it's all the same. And then they're like, oh, here's some RNG score that you can just potentially add to it. Huh? You went from it's fair to it's now RNG, and like someone might just get the key dude and then get a bunch of this brave, whatever it's called, the goop that gives you whatever the teal score is in the corner. That seems to be the antithesis of what the point of the gauntlet is. Surely, am I being like, hey?
Open the key and probably focus on those monsters. Also, keep in mind that you need probably kill them, couple of them, to be able to open the chests. By the way, we went right back to the beginning of the dungeon, and probably our Necromancer now decided to finish our first boss, our Tom Lord, that is waiting here. We have
It's really
2
important
minutes,
to
30 seconds left. 30 seconds left.
It's really important to recognize that too. So the Tomb Lord is a boss that is notorious for moving. And if you're a boss that moves, you're basically the antithesis of a Bone Spear Necro. It wants to keep you in a very specific place. So maybe it's not kill every single pack of monsters. Maybe it's not whittle down every single boss as you go.
I wonder if you could
where the
leash
ones
the
that are going to be
entire, or kites
easiest
the
for you to take
entire
out,
dungeon,
you can make that part of your overall
and
strategy.
then just lead it to
And
one of
running
the
through these
reset
sections
shrines,
again
and
and
then do it
again,
again.
getting as much score as possible. Probably the best part about all of this, and it's something that like you might not have
Because they
picked up
said
on
previously in other
you notice
updates they
that
were
every single time you kill a
disabling
monster,
leashing,
like we
right?
just saw
Which I
there,
hate in
the
Diablo
score
4.
automatically
It's
flies
way
into you.
oversensitive.
So this isn't like running a normal dungeon where you have to go back and pick up those 2 veiled crystals that you happen to notice drop. Your only concern is running through this at breakneck speed, killing demons as you go. And the automatic pickup of score, the ability to know exactly where everything is, having that map fully explored, and then eventually memorizing it as the week goes on, means that players are going to continue to get higher and higher scores as we optimize our builds and as we bring better strategies and better timing, better routes through this. It really calls back to my speedrunning history in Diablo 2 and a little bit in Diablo 4, where every one of these little decisions that you're making could be the difference between ranking top 1 on the leaderboards or just barely cracking through to that top 1,000. But we're honestly seeing a really great showing from the Necromancer here. We have 1 minute left. We've just about cracked 200,000 score. That's actually pretty impressive for this build. I think that Liam's doing a fantastic job showcasing what I think most Necro players' first experience is going to be walking into this content.
Oh, I can hear that you're proud for
very
your Necromancer.
dense.
And guys, we just entered the room.
Sure, I
Guys,
suppose
you
it doesn't
saw
need
that
to
there
be
were a
because they're
lot
not
of
going to be like dropping
chests,
loot,
but
but
still don't have the keys.
I don't know. I feel like
Necromancer need to
the fun
go
of Diablo
through the
is
dungeon, search
massacring
for the keys,
things,
probably search for the
since
shrines,
everything else
probably
is
reset. The
not
winning
fun.
strategy here would
It's
be
so shallow.
resetting the monsters once again, and
that
probably
was
you
me
cannot
being a
open the
bit
chest, but you will be
memey,
able to
but
kill a lot
still.
of monsters and also increase the total amount, your current score. We are almost reaching 200k, really close, and we have 10 seconds left. Looks good.
Oh,
Looks really, really good for our Necromancer.
Come on,
See you
Neko, get
guys.
over
Bye.
200K. Oh, and this is one of the issues that you run into. You know, if you've already cleared out that
Almost.
part of the dungeon, going back through it and kill, you know, there's no more monsters for you to kill. But a great showing for the Necromancer. And can you tell me a little bit more about the screen that we're looking at right here?
We are looking on our total results screen. You can see here
That's
your
not
total
actually a lot of
score.
monsters
You can see here
killed.
the amount of monsters that you killed, all the elite monsters that you killed, and all the bosses that you defeated. All the information.
Like when you think about it.
can see the information about what you reached, which seal you reached. And our Necromancer, yep, Macro was absolutely right here. Our Necromancer was showing insanely good gameplay. Seal of the Worthy. This is the highest seal that you can reach as a player. Tell us more about the seals. What you can say. I know that there are 4 of them. How are they going to work?
So you start all the way down from Seal of the Blooded and then all the way up to Seal of the Worthy. What this basically means is that just running through the gauntlet at all is going to get you that first seal, but you're going to have to crack through higher and higher amounts of total score to rank up to the highest seal. The reason why you want to do that, it's not just bragging rights, as much as the majority of this truly is, but at the end of the week, not only are you going to get a cash just for running the gauntlet every time, you know, a small amount of items, just to say like, hey, good job, you spent your time.
Casual players can complain that's not
on
enough.
top
Straight
of
away,
that,
I'm going to tell you that now.
if you actually reach the end of the week and you
They'll
reach the
think
Seal of
this
the
is
Worthy, you're
absolutely
going to get
supposed to be
all
for
of the
them,
caches for the 4 seals below
and
that.
they'll complain
You're
they're
going
not
to
getting
get
enough loot from
automatic
it.
925 item power that can be ancestral legendaries. It can even increase all the way up to a unique. So it's a much better incentive for people who don't just care about the ego part of it. You know, they're like, hey, I participate. I want to get something out of it. You do too. And being able to get that loot at the end of the week is that nice little cherry on top.
Yeah, and I think that we are ready for our second player. We're going to be joined really
I'm assuming
soon
it's
by
just
the
more of the same, but different
guys.
class. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to watch that. Do they add any of the stuff towards the end?
Next week. What are you excited about the Gauntlet content?
I mean, if I had to pick just one thing, it really comes down to this idea of developing a strategy over a week. You know, we realize, right, you know, as content creators, as streamers, we have a bit of privilege here. The funny part being that everybody is going to be able to watch your strategies. If you're making videos about it, if you're going over strategies, discussing it, basically it's out there. It's open for people to be able to see. So being able to come up with these, maybe a little secret strategy, maybe
that's also another good point.
Just the last
like
couple
that's
days,
going to add
and
to
you actually
it. People are going to want to be like, look, I found the best route, or I've done this, or I've done that.
It's not just about damage. It's not just about stats on your gear. It's how good of a plan can you actually create, and how well can you execute on it, which like truly tests the player's skill in a way that the other content in the game just currently doesn't offer. But I think that's just going to go ahead and do it for us. This has been such a pleasure, Anna. Thank you very much for, you know, sharing this with me. I hope that everybody really enjoyed what they saw here.
I actually hope so too. And yeah, macro theory crafter here, absolutely. Had zero doubts that you're going to say this. Guys, it was an incredible pleasure to be here. Was really, really happy to comment on our first Gauntlet. I'm Anna Cake Light. I don't know, follow, like, and subscribe. And Macro, you want to say something? You want to add something?
Yeah. And again, my name is Macro Bioboy. Macro Bioboy on everything. If you care, see me go try to smash the Necro through this gauntlet. Thank you again to everybody. It was an absolute honor here. I think we're going to go ahead and throw it back to Adam and everybody in the studio.
Macro's a good caster.
The gauntlet, and I can't wait to see you all out there next
I've never
week.
seen him do this type of content before. He's quite good at it.
Awesome.
What do I think of the gauntlet, though? I think it's good. I think the player base, especially based on the like-dislike ratio, are not happy because it's not for a lot of them. I think Diablo 4 in some ways is at a disadvantage by the fact that PoE exists. People forget that the reason PoE has so much content is because it's been added over years. Like PoE, when it first started, I remember playing it near release, and it had 3 acts, and the last boss was Dominus, and you farmed Dominus. That was your gameplay. And now it's got like Delve, it's got the Betrayal or Syndicate and stuff like that. You've got Alva and all the other leagues, and you've got lots of options, and options in different types of content. If you just want to blast monsters, you can blast monsters. If you want to blast bosses, you can blast bosses. If you want to do tower defense, you can do tower defense. If you want to do roguelike stuff, you can do roguelike stuff. You have all of these options, in Diablo 4, they've kind of fostered the player base into blasting monsters and only blasting monsters. Like when they did this season, and there was like traps and stuff in the halls of whatever they're bloody called, like the halls of cinder and stuff like that. People were complaining that the gameplay was different, that you were having to stop and be a bit more tactical and making sure that you weren't like getting dicked on by traps. And the thing is, that would have been fine if there were other types of actual content to play, like Helltides, dungeons, the overworld. It's all about just blasting through a zone. It's just the zones in different shapes, but it's all about the same thing, and there's no real obstacles. There's no real difference in gameplay. It's more of just the setting that you're in at the time. I think this is going to have a lot of appeal to the players who are probably a lot more hardcore, a little less casual, like the top 10% of players, especially the ones who like speedrunning. I think the ones that are going to like speedrunning are going to be on this like a fat kid on cake. The community is going to like talk about the best routes, the best tactics, all that shenanigans, and they're going to do it for the prestige, because that's what speedrunning is. And watching speedrunning can be really, really fun. Like, I don't engage in any, but sometimes I'll watch speedrunning things and I'll just be amazed at how they've managed to achieve it and how they've managed to optimize and min-max their gameplay. But it's not for everyone. So because they're going to add this, there's going to be loads of people going, I don't want to play that, therefore it's shit. And it's like, but it's not. It's just not for you. And the only way they could get around this is if they added a bunch of systems at once, which they can only really do with like an expansion, because that's how they design stuff, and then charge you for it. So I genuinely think it's a good thing. I just don't think the player base is going to like it, because it's not going to be for the vast majority of them, because they've targeted a casual audience, and this is not a casual thing to do. And they're going to be like, and even though they've pointed out it's about prestige, it's not about items. It's like you get some items as a thank you for participating. But despite pointing that out, there's gonna be so many people who are gonna be like, oh, what's the point in playing Gauntlet? The items are shit, because they don't get it. It's not for them, and that's gonna be a lot of people, the majority of people. I really think they need to, they being Diablo 4, they need to decide who their audience actually is. I think they've made a mistake in going too casual, and now it's biting them in the ass, because one, you can't retain players with casual systems, especially in a live service action RPG of all games. And now they've fostered this audience that expects that, because they're all dad gamers and stuff like that. When they're introduced to things with more depth, it's going to piss them off, and then they go, oh no, we're pissing off like all the people that only play for a week at a time and don't stick around because the game's too shallow. And it's a tough one. They've put themselves in a really shitty position, unfortunately. But overall, I thought that was fine. Like, is it something I would participate a lot in? Probably not. I might use it as a benchmark. Like, when I finish a build, I'll go in and be like, oh, how fast can I do it? And then maybe give it 1 or 2 attempts. But again, even that would be just to see where I show up on the leaderboard. And maybe if I get some upgrades, I'll do it again to use it as some kind of like barometer to see how much my build's improved. But yeah, it's not going to get, it's going to be dunked on by the vast majority of players, I think. And like I said, the thing with the chests is really odd, because you're going to have someone who's in like second place, and they're going to be really pissed off because the person in first place happened to get 3 keys, because it's RNG, and then they got X amount more buff of purple teal juice or whatever color it was again. So
thank you so much, Macro,
it sucks.
Anna, for taking us through that. Of course, our 3 volunteers from the dev team. We got John, we got Steven.
Because they're trying to add more variety, and every time they do, it gets shit on by a player base that's been nurtured into a certain type of gameplay.
They were learning they were learning the dungeon, because again, with Gauntlet, it is a weekly dungeon that does get changed over.
Fixed. I mean, every spawn, every creature you come through, every chest location, every key drop, like every boss, every shrine, yeah, it's all fixed every time you do the runs, and that's what allows you to have that sense of like, okay, I know a little bit more about this space now. I can run it again. I'll do a little bit better.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I know with we saw some questions of like players, are going like, hey, because we have 3 different classes here, and again, they're all on their own unique leaderboards themselves.
Yeah, every class has its own unique leaderboard. So when you're playing, Charged Barbarian for the season, you're playing against other barbarians, for on the leaderboard. But we also have 2-player, 3-player, and 4-player leaderboards as well for players who want to get into parties and try to compete.
The chests
So we think
don't
that's
give you
really exciting.
loot. They just
And then
drop
I know,
more of the score
in
buff.
regards
So every time you
to,
killed a monster,
like,
it dropped an orb, and
rewards
those
and
chests
stuff,
have
like,
more orbs.
depending on the
and
seal
if
that
you find
get,
a key,
actually
you
get
just get
more,
a bunch of more of those
caches, and
orbs.
the caches themselves offer up a 925 like ancestral that I believe is in each cache. So I believe if you get a seal of worthy, you end up getting 4 each time. And these aren't exactly like the idea of Gauntlet itself is really aspirational. So there are opportunities for players themselves to, of course,
the
earn
loot
themselves
is a
into the Hall of,
participation thing at the end.
Ancients each week.
You
and
get
you're kind of,
1925
adding on
item.
to a permanent record, you
Yeah.
could say.
And
Put it
at
on
that
your
point, you're
resume type
probably
of
already
thing,
geared as well, because you're going to be doing it at level 100.
For each week in the Hall of the Ancients, depending on where you actually land on the leaderboards.
Yeah, we don't really want to see the Gauntlet and the Trials feature as a place where players go to try to get gear for their builds. Really more of a place where players are going to go once they've got like really good builds put together to kind of try things out. But yeah, for players who do manage to clear, for every seal that they manage to complete at the end of the week, based on their highest ranking, they're going to get a cache like you called out. And there's a high chance of unique items actually appearing in these caches as well. So you can get 925 uniques out of these. But again, these are really like, more augmenting other things you've been collecting over the course of the season, not like being the primary reason that you're going.
Because you're only going to get the loot once a week as well.
We
so you get a
actually
small
have a
amount of
blog
loot
that's going
once a week.
up after the stream that actually details out all the information in the Gauntlet, including some other rewards as well for players that hit like the really, really high ranks of, where they can potentially earn some cosmetic items as well for Gauntlet. So
that would be a lot
Gauntlet,
better
again,
if they
hitting,
just put some
next Tuesday.
sick-ass
And I know for like the
cosmetics
first
in.
couple of weeks, we want to make sure that players are jumping in, trying it out. Especially with these new changes that are coming with the mid-season update, the vampiric powers and everything like that.
Like depending on what seal you get
let
an
us know what you guys think,
evolution
and then,
of a certain type of
post up
armor,
feedback
for
on,
example.
Reddit, forums, social media. We're going to be checking it out for Gauntlet, making any tweaks if we need to make any tweaks. And then I know we actually have a cool contest that's coming up here, starting on that's tied back to Gauntlet. It's actually starting on March 19th. We're calling it Leaderboard Legends.
But the top, you would go to other places for your loot. You wouldn't use this specific for your loot. It is
again
it's
leaderboards
speedrunning.
for
It's
all
for
the
bragging
different
rights.
classes, for all solo, and at the
Just
same
to get on
time
top of the
for,
leaderboard and go, look at me, I made a
hardcore as
dope
well.
build,
So
and I
if
figured
you play in
out
hardcore and
the
if you
optimal way to play the dungeon.
in a Gauntlet, your character's gone. It is hardcore for that reason. So, but we will have opportunities for players to actually earn an exclusive art print from an artist named Mika Ulrich. He's a huge Diablo fan. He actually is making a customized art print. That contest itself will be running for 2 weeks. So we'll have more information on that contest as we get closer to March 19th. But players that do
play it,
compete
like
on
I said, I'll probably give it a go to use it as a barometer.
Earning
like if I make a build, I'll be like, okay, I'll see what score I can get, and then maybe I'll do some tweaks, and then
next Tuesday,
I could be like, oh, I did it quicker, so
it'll be in
probably a better build, you know what I mean? All the
patch notes
changes
that we
worked,
have,
kind of thing.
going up tomorrow. So. And we have a blog going later today with a lot of stuff
Especially since it's the same dungeon, it means you can use it as a benchmark.
Here at the back end. Yeah.
I'll probably watch videos on it as well to see how people do it.
Some pretty big news from
Like I said, I'm not a speedrunner, but I do enjoy speedrunning content.
Season 4, and I know Joe wanted to talk a little bit about it.
So I'm very excited. So we've been talking about season 4 a little bit, but like leading up to the release of season 3, I mentioned some things about season 4.
Season 4 has to be perfect.
There's gonna be a lot
if it's anything less than perfect, there's gonna be a riot. People are just gonna leave.
Some of you have been around since the launch of the game. We had some streams after season 1 went live. Where we talked a little bit about some of the changes we wanted to make in season 2. And we'll remember that, like, vulnerable damage to vulnerable targets was like an extremely powerful stat, an all-encompassing stat, really, in that part of the game. And we had to go back, and we really wanted to take a harder, longer look at that, look at overpowering some other things, and try to get the game into a better place. There were just more viable stats for players to proceed with. And that was a good amount of work, I think, that we can suggest. And it was a really great impact on the game overall, but it was, there's some work involved. Season 4 goes well beyond like the scope and scale and changes that we made in season 2, particularly with regards to things like our stats, attributes, and the way that rewards work. So while there were a lot of things that we did in season 2, and we're really happy with a lot of things in season 2 as a result, there was a much better version and expression of the game experience overall.
Much
We
better
have a lot
reception is
more
what he
planned in
means.
season 4, and the team has been hard at work for months and months working on a lot of these things.
Especially in comparison to this season.
Season 3 came out. We had some changes with it. I think it's gone very, very well. There's a lot of really fun stuff in season 3. Season 4 is going to be responding to a lot more of the reward concerns that players have, a lot of things with regards to itemization, and other things we're not going to talk about just yet. But the news that we actually wanted to talk about today is that we're going to be opening up a PTR for Season 4, so that we get a chance to let the community come in and test it
Public or private?
before the content actually goes live when Season 4 launches. So it'll be coming up, while Season 3 is still active. The Season 4 PTR will go live, and players will get a chance to check that out and give us the feedback. And if they find issues and balance things, and we'll get a chance to kind of interpret all that and make some changes as we go.
Yeah, and I know players themselves have been asking, hey, how can we make Diablo a better experience? We want to be a part of it.
Totally.
It's something that the team here has most definitely heard. Yeah. As Joe mentioned, there's a ton of changes, especially around itemization that are coming into Season 4. So the team here really did feel a need for a PTR for players to jump in, try it out, provide their feedback while Season 3 is still active, of course, because we want to make sure that players are jumping in before Season 4 actually does start, and giving us that feedback so we can make any type of tweaks and changes from our end. And I know the team here has been doing a lot of work to incorporate a PTR into Diablo 4, especially for the first time. And so what we will say is, like, PTR, of course, will be before Season 4 starts. We'll actually have more information here in the coming weeks. We're actually going to have another campfire chat specifically focused around PTR and the content that you'll be playing in PTR. So it's kind of, it will be a little bit of a reveal of what you'll be experiencing in Season 4 as well. So it's going to be...
There'll be some things we'll hold on to talk about.
Some things we'll hold on, not everything.
But a huge amount of stuff. Huge amount of stuff to talk about.
So it's not under NDA.
And I will say it will be we're already talking about it and going like, wow, it's going to be a pretty beefy campfire chat coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We'll have more info soon. But and one thing that we did want to note is it is just PC BattleNet to be as agile as we want to be with the changes on PTR. PC BattleNet was the best option for us. So players on PC BattleNet will be able to experience the PTR themselves. And I will say with PTR, because of the changes that are coming with Season 4 and the amount of changes, as I said, the team felt like, hey, we need a PTR to make sure this happens. Does that mean we'll have a PTR every single season? Maybe not. It depends on the scale of changes that we have. But for Season 4, we most definitely plan on having a PTR. And so we'll have news on that really soon. So we're really excited that players can jump in, provide feedback. I know it's a long-awaited thing that people have been going like, oh, we would love to be able to jump in and provide some feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been playing Season 4 internally for weeks.
Yeah, it can be a private test run as well, though.
From 1-100, and it's a blast. I'm really looking forward to getting more feedback and thoughts, just getting more eyeballs and some of the stuff that we have planned. It can be very, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, like I said, we'll be back here in the next few weeks. We'll have information on when that campfire chat will be for PTR and all the information that you guys will be experiencing in that PTR specifically. So, and just because I know not everyone has experienced a PTR, I probably should define what a PTR is. Yeah. It is a public test realm. It is the ability of players being able to jump.
I'm in two minds about it. Probably in a somewhat selfish way, I admit. I do think it's going to be to their benefit that they collaborate more with the community. The reason I think that is because I don't think they understand action RPG players as well as they think. I think we've got a lot of evidence to back up that statement, unfortunately. So the more they get players involved, the more they'll actually understand how people who play action RPG games play action RPG games. And probably, hopefully, start moving away from targeting super casual to more like intermediate casual, which will hopefully mean pushing for more depth and things like that. But then, as he said, it's kind of a reveal as well. So, down the road, if the game does get itself into a really good state, there'll be less hype because you'll know what's coming because you've played it, kind of thing. So it could backfire in some ways as well. I do. From a purely data standpoint, I do wonder how many people would play the PTR experience a lot, not all the content like Joe just said, but a lot of the content, a lot of the changes, especially if it's halfway through the previous season. Like, people already play a season for a week and then they piss off. So then they'll come back for the PTR, go, okay, yeah, I've experienced the PTR, and then not come back for season 4 because they've already played most of that content. So I would be interested to see how that ends up working out. But I'm glad that they're working more with the player base. I feel like they need to at this point. Like, it's a necessity. Like, I think Path of Exile does really well with just getting out content, and most of the time getting it right. Sure, there's some tweaks. Sometimes they need to nerf stuff. Sometimes they need to buff stuff halfway through the season or partway through the first week or so. But for the most part, you get a mechanic and you're like, yeah, this is cool. Could use a tweak, could use some polish or whatever, but it's cool. Last Epoch, they have the closed test realm, which I think has been instrumental in patch 1.0 and getting it into a state that it's really, really, really good. Aside from the server issues, of course. But I think the D4 devs need player feedback. Like, they have to rely on it. They need people to say, no, you're being dumb, why are you doing this? Kind of thing. And they need it more often. I'm a bit concerned that it's open to the public, though, because you're just going to get any, like, Tom, Dick, and Harry coming in who are just going to say random shit and be like, oh, it doesn't have this and therefore it's bad, and not be actually constructive about it. Like, that's going to be a lot of bullshit to wade through on their end, on the devs end. Whereas if it's like a closed one, you tend to have people who are literally there to help improve the game in meaningful ways and provide good feedback. Like, there's nothing worse than having ambiguous or just shit feedback. And I don't mean shit in a negative way. I mean, like, oh, this is broken. Why? Well, it just feels like it. It's like, oh, that fucking helps. Thanks. You know what I mean? They can't give any insights into what is making something feel good or bad or whatnot, generally. So, public, I think I would prefer if it was, like, closed and you had to apply for it or something silly like that. Because, like I said, you'd get the dedicated players who actually know what they're talking about then.
Into a earlier build and kind of like test it out. Think of it like almost like a mini beta test of some sort to experience content that is coming down the line so that they can actually provide feedback over to us. Yeah. And then we can make changes before things do go live. We've had PTRs for Diablo 2, we've had PTRs for Diablo 3, and of course now we have PTRs for Diablo 4. So,
oh yeah, for sure.
Really
like,
excited
the
for that.
feedback
and again,
is necessary.
We'll be back in a couple weeks.
Every good change that's been brought into Diablo 4
we'll now jump
has
into
been
Q&A.
like,
we're
player
we know
ideas.
That, a lot of people
where players have gone, you should do it like
we'll
this, and then loads of people rallied behind it and gone, yeah, this is how it should be done, and then those are the changes they've made.
Everyone, you know, at the end of the stream, like checking out the site for all the Gauntlet information and stuff like that. If we can't get to stuff,
Vlogs going live.
Vlogs going live. Yep. So I know one question that we've seen a lot, at least within the community, is regarding the changes in 1.3.2 with the crafting changes, the ability of being able to craft Uber uniques. And we've seen some feedback from players related to that, especially related to like Resplendent Sparks, how many are required for them. I know you guys wanted to talk about that really quickly.
Yeah, I'll jump into this first, right? So for the uninitiated in 1.3.2, in our last patch, we put in the ability for players to be able to craft these Uber unique items of their choice once they reach World Tier 4. And they require Resplendent Sparks to do so. And you get Resplendent Sparks by finding another Uber unique, which are very rare, salvage them, and then that gives you the one material that you need. Now, at launch, you need 5 Resplendent Sparks in order to craft one of these Uber uniques.
Bearing in mind, most players have not found a single Uber unique, never mind 5.
Going live, and the trial system is going live.
Like, across all seasons, most people have still not found one.
Now, why do we choose these numbers? So, alongside those changes that we made, and as part of that last release, we also dramatically increased the drop rate of Uber uniques from non-Duriel sources. So while Duriel gives you a fairly steady drop rate chance, still low, obviously, it's hard to find Uber unique items in general. They're very rare and very powerful. It was exceptionally rare, as I think most players would understand, to find Uber uniques outside of the encounter of Uber Duriel, which is one of the reasons why Uber Duriel is so popular. We did dramatically increase that drop rate chance. It's still very rare, right? So you're not going to be seeing it all the time, but we are seeing a dramatic uptick in the number of Uber uniques that are dropping throughout the game as a result of this.
That's good.
So
Let's still want to
why
know
go from
numbers
if
though.
we heard some of the concerns about the number 5? You know, why would we go from just a 20% reduction to 4? So we are seeing more of these Uber uniques dropping across the board, as I suggested. And this is sort of us beginning to get a sense of how players are interacting with these features as we start looking towards Season 4. So in terms of like the number of Uber uniques that are dropping, the way that players are engaging with various parts of the game overall to like farm up these items, you know, we're seeing some changes in patterns, which is really, really cool. We just want to let things evolve a little bit and see how things proceed. And as we kind of get into Season 4, we'll be looking at making potentially further adjustments based upon, you know, reception and how we see the numbers actually doing. Yeah. We still want Uber uniques to remain in a spot where they are very aspirational. They're not expected for every build to have them in order for them to come online and feel fun. Obviously, players really want them. You want them for your characters. They're really potent. But they shouldn't be the thing that is enabling you to really do something fun with your class. It's more, it's an...
I have a hot take here. I don't think Uber uniques feel that Uber. Like, they're strong. They are absolutely strong. But they don't feel like items that when they drop, you go, holy shit, I've won the game kind of thing. Like, you've got tier 0 uniques in PoE, like Mage Blood, Headhunters. If you get a Headhunters, your build will destroy everything immediately. If you get that, the amount of euphoria you feel is insane, and you're like, holy shit, I just have to equip this, and 99% of builds suddenly become God. Like, that's just it. None of the Uber uniques, like even Shaco with its +4 skills and damage reduction, is very, very strong. But it just feels like a massive improvement as opposed to something that's so rare that you practically have to be a lottery winner to acquire. You know, I feel like they're tier 1 uniques or tier A, and they're being treated like tier S. And plus with what I said earlier, that they should be found from more sources than just one bloody boss that you have to farm again and again and again and again and again. Like, I remember I did like 50 real runs in Season 2, and I got 1 Uber unique, and I was like, and it was me and 3 other people, and we just spammed 50 of these runs, and I think in total we got 2, and it was just like, cool, this was worth it kind of thing. And I wasn't even after an Uber unique, I was after the Banished Lord's Talisman. But yeah, I think Uber uniques need to feel a lot more Uber for the amount of rarity that they are, but I think until they change the itemization so it's actually more interesting than just 4 affixes and one thing that focuses on one specific skill more often than not, it's going to be hard to do. But they definitely need more bosses. They need to stop adding things in isolation. Even this system where you break down the Uber uniques until you get 4 of the mats to make the one that you want to make. In isolation, where it's been added on its own with no other changes to the Uber unique or Uber boss system, it hasn't benefited anyone. It's only benefiting the people who are literally doing thousands of Dureal runs a week, probably botting at this point. And therefore it doesn't feel good, because you have to get lots of Uber uniques to get the salvageable materials to get the Uber unique you want. It's like a really redundant pity system for the people that don't really need a pity system. But if it was added with other things in mind as well, like they added more bosses, more sources to get these Uber uniques, then it would probably feel a lot better and would work a lot better. And yeah, sure, increasing the drop rates for world drops will help a little bit, but like, if it's gone from 0.001% chance to drop an Uber unique in the world to 0.002 or whatever, like, it's still like extraordinarily low for the benefit those items actually give. I'm pretty sure one of the Uber uniques is literally just like looked at as a trash item as well. I can't remember which one it is, but one of them basically you get it and most people just go, I got that one, did I? kind of thing. So I don't know. I think it just, I think a lot of their problems stem from their adding small changes in isolation so they stand out as not being that functional or that beneficial to the game. And I think it makes, like, it's a common thing to see, unfortunately, But a lot of people you will see say things like, the game's still in beta, the game is unfinished. It feels like they're having to add more content all the time that should already be in the game. Stuff that other action RPGs already have in their games. And that's regardless of whether they're indie or not. You've got GGG, you've got EHG. They've added so much quality of life stuff, and they both started as like two blokes messaging each other on Reddit going, do you want to make a game? And now there's some of the most popular games currently online, you know, in this era of action RPGs. And then you get Diablo 4 and they're like, why do you want to loot for it? It's like, what do you mean, why do you want to loot for it? You need more stash space? Yes, we need more stash space. Do you know who action RPG players are? Like, what they do? Kind of thing. It's... It feels bad. I feel like Diablo 4, most people are going to be really, really unhappy with it. I say most people. The casual Andes, the casual people who play it on the consoles a couple of hours a week are probably loving it. Because it's just something to go in and bash head against the wall and just not give a fuck and just mash demons or whatever. But they're not bringing in money. They bought the game once and then that's probably it. The people who are bringing in the money are the people who come back every season, are playing for weeks at a time, like 10, 20 hours a week at least, kind of thing. They're the people who are going to be spending money in the shop, and they're the ones that you need to keep entertained. You want to retain them. And that's something that Diablo 4 is really bad at, retaining those people. Like, right now, the category has like 2,000 people watching it. 2,000 people are watching this category, Diablo 4, on Twitch right now, as opposed to literally any other of the action RPGs. I wouldn't be surprised if Torchlight Infinite had more viewers right now, to be honest. It's just, they fucked up and they've got a lot of catching up to do. And maybe in a year, we can look back at it and be like, holy shit, they fixed it. But I don't think they will, mostly because Blizzard don't generally fix their games. They put them into maintenance mode. We've already got precedent of them doing that with one of their live service games, because Diablo 4 is a live service game. Heroes of the Storm. They aimed for a super casual audience. They couldn't retain that audience because they're casual gamers. And then they're like, oh, well, we'll just stop making updates then and put it into maintenance mode. And I fear that's what's going to happen with Diablo 4. I think they released it too early. They should have had a lot more testing on it and gotten a lot more feedback from players beforehand to really tell them what action RPG gamers do. I honestly think the devs should do just basic homework. I think they should play Last Epoch, Torchlight Infinite, hell, even Undecember, Path of Exile, and see why people love those games. Because the only action RPG games that they know how to play is Diablo 3 and Diablo 2 Resurrected to a degree. Because clearly so much of the game is based on Diablo 3, which again was a game that wasn't a live service, so had no expectation of content. It was a game you bought, you played, and then if you were done with it, you moved on, and you were happy. You were like, yeah, I had a good time. That's why the reviews for Diablo 4 initially were so good. Because a lot of people didn't even know it was a live service. They played it, they did a character or two, they were like, yeah, I had a good time. And then they moved on to Hello Kitty Adventure. And that was it. But Diablo 4 is a live service game, so they've set an expectation for lots of content, lots of things to do, things to make them engage in the live service. Live services are a hobby in and of themselves. That's what a live service is. That's how they retain players. It's how they make money. And almost every design decision they've made has been the opposite of doing that. You play for a week, you go, cool, thanks, I'm going to go play Last Epoch or the new League in Path of Exile now. And then you play Path of Exile, you play it for weeks. Like a good month before there's a major like platform drop-off kind of thing and people move on to another game. Some people play it for the entire 3 months. Diablo 4, you very rarely see that. Very, very rarely.
Extra layer on top of your class once you've managed to get one.
Awesome. Question that we have here is, Are we getting any end game content in season? I'm sorry, I was supposed to read the name.
Oh God,
Hey,
here
you
we go
don't
again.
put your names, it doesn't count.
Jucklax.
Yeah, I think the game is going to benefit from the
Jucklax?
testing
Jucklax.
with
Juck-
other
or
players.
Juck with a
100%.
J.
Juck with the J.
I'm sure everyone's really happy that we're spending all this time on this. Go ahead.
Very important.
Are we getting any end game content in season 4?
So I'm not allowed to talk about season 4 today, but I would recommend that you definitely check out the PTR stream when we start talking about a lot of the content.
I'm
players are
genuinely
gonna get a chance
surprised
to
that
test as part of
Andariel didn't come out
that PTR
this
release,
season.
because there is a lot of stuff that's going to be happening, particularly for endgame players.
There we go.
Is it a
there's
lot
question
though,
regarding
or is it
Gauntlet.
just one
Wing-
boss?
Wing-
It needs to be more than just
that's-
one boss.
So-
It needs to be a lot.
Congratulations. We have a question from Globusnus. That was, why is the level difficulty only Nightmare 70 for the Gauntlet?
Yes. So we wanted to make sure that Gauntlet content felt something players could start trying to dig into immediately upon entering World Tier 4. Why did we do this? We wanted players to be able to like ramp up through the content as they're leveling up through that last World Tier, and we wanted to see how players were going to react to it. Basically, as a result of that, like, do players ever want to try playing through it at 85? Because when you're playing through the Gauntlet, there's the seals that I think were discussed during the playthrough. The players can earn based on the point scores they're able to get. If you're crushing those point scores, you're getting rewards for doing that. And it gives you that sense of progression as you go, and you get more and more of your gear online. You find more of the uniques you need. You manage to get like you start getting your 925 items online. Like, a lot of your player power can come online as you get your glyphs leveled up and things. It doesn't mean that you need to wait to level at a very high level to be able to go do that content. So we want to make it available, and we also want to focus a little bit more on how quickly players can navigate the space. Use shrines to the best effect, reset creature spawns, fight bosses, spawn bosses. We want to focus more on the strategy element of it rather than the sense that monsters had much higher hit point values and dealt much more damage as part of the run. We weren't looking to like recreate like the AOZ moment, for example, as part of the space. We want this to be a little bit faster, a little bit more approachable for players of different like gear scores effectively when they start getting and build power parity when they start getting to the space. Having like a fully tricked out build is going to still be very, very useful because it allows you to blast a lot faster.
Yeah, and also I'd like just to double down, like the purpose of the Gauntlet it's not meant to be really, really hard to get through at all, where like if you just finish it, that's an accomplishment, right? Like AOZ was more that room, like can you beat it?
Yeah.
And that's not what the Gauntlet is. The Gauntlet is about how quickly can you beat it, how do you optimize, how do you strategize, how do you change your route? It's a different thing that we're testing for players. It's not just about defeating it at all.
It's about the point score. you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
I genuinely think it's a good
Speaking
system,
of
but
AOZ,
because it's in
Sparky
isolation, the
47
players are going to hate it.
asks, any AOZ content coming soon?
I just really recommend, again, check out. I mean, just
Really look at
like,
that
there's a lot of
stream,
stuff
like, watch
happening
that
in the
stream.
PTR stream. I just really recommend it. Just get a chance to check out that stream. I would recommend it.
I'm going to
Okay,
answer
that
this really
sounds
quickly. 'cause
somewhat
Shark
promising,
Cohen
because that's
asked,
actually another
is, the
system
P
being added, as
PTR
opposed to
public
like,
or
here's a
private?
new
It is
like,
public.
way to just kill monsters
So
fast.
if you are a PC Battle.net user, you'll be able to actually jump into the PTR. We'll have instructions and everything of how to do that once we have the PTR up and we have the stream and everything like that for players. Is
It'll be
PTR
the
free
drop-down
from
menu
Midwest
chat,
Bob?
don't worry,
Yes,
I've
it
got
is.
you.
Is there an NDA?
Above
No,
the play
there's not an
button.
NDA.
PTR.
Can you stream it? Of course you can. So yes, we'll have more information on that again with the PTR.
yeah,
I know
I mean,
there's a
it's-
lot of PTR questions.
One point I just want to make really clear, like it is free as long as you are a person who owns Diablo 4 on
Correct.
Battle.net.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yes,
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. It's if you're already an owner of Diablo 4 on Battle.net. Good clarification. Fonz asks, Adam, will you be able to see a breakdown of individual score relative to the other people in your party in the Gauntlet? Actually, that's a good question. If you can go to the leaderboard and actually inspect players, because I haven't done that myself on the build. So
Yeah, right now it's party score, so it's
You
totaling
can see
up
the
the
teams,
value of your
not the
whole team.
individual person.
Yeah,
got it. Okay.
there is
And
no
then-
I in team or
So,
party.
I guess my own sub question to that would be, on a solo leaderboard, would you be able to actually see someone's build if they have their profile not private or something like that? Can you actually pull up their character?
Yeah, you'll be able to
information?
see the skills they have equipped at the time, and
you
you'll
see
be able to
the
see like their
items?
key passive. So yeah, you can't look at their whole skill tree, but like you can see a lot of information about them.
Awesome.
Because we don't talk about this, but we
Just
actually
the
did make some
skills isn't
updates
a
to,
lot.
like,
Just
the
everyone's
profile
gonna use the
screen.
same skills
We made some
'cause that's the
updates at
nature of
same
Diablo
time.
4.
They'll be showing up in that release.
Imligate says, will the Gauntlet leaderboard be region locked? No, because everyone's playing technically on a global server.
That's right.
When you do play with your friends in your own region, you just tend to connect to them. You tend to connect to people that are playing near you because of obviously latency and stuff like that. So.
That's right.
Does the companion go with you in the gauntlet? So I think people, I saw this comment a
Yes.
lot,
Yes,
well,
you can
especially
see it.
when Stephen Leviathan was playing through because he was the charge barb. And
Oh,
so a lot of
okay.
people thought he didn't have a Seneschal construct with him. No, just charge barbs just move really fast. So
he was there.
he most definitely was there. The construct was there and was following him and stuff like that. So
It'll be with you inside
It will
the-
be
that's
with
right.
you inside the gauntlet. And just so that you guys are aware, gauntlet is a feature that is not just season 3.
Yeah.
It is a feature that goes beyond season 3. This is a part of Diablo 4 going
Yeah,
forward.
so generally your seasonal powers and things will go into the gauntlet. You'll be able to bring everything to bear that you can.
Yeah, we talked about this quite a bit actually, whether we want that to
Yeah.
be the case, and we think it's more fun to allow these things to coexist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question is, do we have to wait a month and a half into the season for it to kick in? It's supposed to be weekly, so if it's from the get-go, that's good, and also falls in line with what they're saying about, like, you don't have to be level 100 because it's nightmare level 70, so you could technically enter it earlier. You could then use it, like I was saying before, as like a barometer or benchmark to see how your build is doing. But if you're going to wait until 3, 4, 5 weeks into the season, half your players have gone, and the players that are already there are already level 100. So that moment has passed. So hopefully it is like day 1 of each season, not like really delayed. Because they did, like, Abattoir of Zir didn't kick in until like a month in. No one went back to play it. Like, a few of the die-hard content creators did because they had to make content on it. And I suspect very few people are going to come back to play it this season, rather, the Gauntlet. I think most people's first experience of it is going to be next season if it's day 1.
A question from Cody4PF. Why is there minimal mob density in Gauntlet? The barb ran out of density. How am I supposed to play this with my friends? I think players, with Gauntlet is like a different type of like play style. Players will most definitely have. You'll learn the.
What was I saying earlier? That they could explain in detail how it works, and that it's supposed to be about the strategy and stuff like that, and you're still going to get a casual Andy going, how can I play this if there's not enough shit to kill?
Dungeon throughout that week.
Exactly
You'll
what I
learn
said
that
would
you
happen.
Can actually take bosses. You don't have to kill that boss right there. You can most definitely bypass it. Maybe even like leash it or bring it with you into other rooms.
You might want to save it because you might want the shrine later in a different way.
There are shrines that actually bring back mobs back to life, so you can immediately get an additional score. And so there's a lot of strategy involved with it. So I know a lot of people are going like, hey, there are specific moments where like Steven was like, didn't have
I do
anyone,
think there should be
to
some
kill
more
there.
monsters
It's
just
mainly
to get the
because,
feel
you
right.
can actually strategize and pull specific things and try to figure
From what
out
I
exactly
saw.
what ends up working really well for your character, your build, or how you want to actually maybe use shrines to benefit exactly who you kill there.
Yeah,
But then again, I
we're not
haven't
looking to
played
make
it,
a slow
so
paced
I could be full of
experience
shit.
with the
Might
Gauntlet, which I
feel
think you
different
probably saw
in real
the
life.
players getting a chance to check it out earlier. But we're also not trying to maximize density in the same way that we would in like Nightmare Dungeons or Helltide areas. You know, players aren't getting loot drops and they're not getting a lot of experience from these creatures. So that really the focus is on the player having an idea of like where they can find packs of mobs and where mobs can be found in general in the space, and navigating the environment carefully in order to like maximize their point gain during that time, and then interacting with these other things along the way. Why are you smiling?
It's just, I have a question from someone in here, but they have the most hilarious username.
I look forward to this.
I'm gonna say it, but it's hilarious.
Just go.
Bob Dole's Blue Pills asks,
Very good, man.
any possibility of getting better cosmetics through gameplay, maybe through gauntlets, skins on
Was that
par,
funny?
from
I
the
don't
shop,
get it.
etc. This is actually a active conversation that's been happening
Is
a
that an
lot,
American thing?
especially based off of community feedback that we've seen regarding the shop and stuff. So I will say that we don't have anything to say right now, but we'll have some more news regarding some items related to the shop that we'll be sharing here over the coming weeks and months and stuff that will kind of help with some of this conversation that I know that we've been hearing. Sorry, that name was just wow. Al Quadrodia.
Joe's so sick of the name thing.
Killing over there.
I
He's
know,
so
amazing.
sick of it. He's
Adam,
like, we do
perfect.
not give a fuck
where
about the
can we find
names,
new
Adam.
vampiric legendary aspects? This is something we mentioned at the beginning of the stream, and if for people that are just kind of tuning in, vampiric powers are coming back into season 3 a little bit, tuned a little bit differently.
Yeah, some of them.
Yeah, so you'll be able to find them the same way you can find any other legendary in the game. They're just going to be random drops everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's,
just to clarify,
I think that's a missed opportunity. I think they should have added them back
in the
as a
dungeons like the
system.
Codex of Power. None of them
rather
are
than
going
just
in there, but
competing
you'll
for
be able
other
to find them
aspects.
just like other legendary, just randomly out in the world. So no different than any of those.
Awesome. Chronics TR Nightmare Vaults were a community favorite and very
Would have
awesome
added
to
more
run
depth
through.
as
Will they come back
a
after
secondary
Season
layer.
3?
There are a lot of really good learnings
And
from
it would be
Nightmare Vaults,
thematic.
and a lot of the content we have in Season 3 that's kind of advising things we're doing with Nightmare Dungeons across the board. While Nightmare Vaults themselves are not immediately returning, like in Season 4, for example, they are also something we're going to be continuing to look at and think about for future releases. So, but we're really glad that players have found like some value in them and just how exciting they are and how punchy they are on the reward side.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're fun. They're a great disruption to the Nightmare Dungeon loop sometimes too.
Yeah.
I thought Vaults were actually really good, but again, they were in isolation in a game
plan on
that
offering an armory to
fostered
maybe
the players
swap
to just
builds?
blast, and then
This
they were
is
like,
something that
wait, we don't blast? What is
we've
this? This
heard a
feels
lot
weird.
over,
We've talked about it before too on stream.
Yeah.
We really like this idea. The systems teams, the UI teams, all like the idea of doing this. There are plans for us to add it somewhere in the future, but we don't have dates to talk about yet. This is something we really like the idea of. We want to make sure that the game is, when we launched the game, we had this idea of like having some sense of like build permanence and things. We thought that was really important. Harkening back to some of the some bits in the past from Diablo 2 and other games, but increasingly as we've been continuing to build the game and receive feedback and like play it ourselves, we're finding we really want to be able to embrace a lot more flexibility. You'll see some like steps in that direction also in Season 4, but this is an example of a thing where it's like, well, we do, in an effort to make sure the players can kind of change the way they want to play more easily, this is a feature we'd like to support. We want to do it the right way. So this, these are things that we continue to be discussing.
I'm glad they're doing it, but the reason they have to do it is because the itemization is stupid. And I actually mean it. It is stupid. One, it ties into the world tier system, which is something I have a lot of thoughts on. I actually thought about it like for a while the other day, and it's something I'm going to expand on in the review when I eventually do it, or do it rather. But the reason you need an armory system is, one, you can't get leveling items. It's just not a thing. Like, uniques are gated behind level 50. Why? Not just level 50, but behind an accessibility feature, technically. World Tier 3, a difficulty setting. If you're not in World Tier 3 and level 50, like, you're very unlikely to get uniques. And it's like, okay. And then when you get uniques on your level 100 character, every single one of them and every single other item you find is level 80 or above. And if you're playing a particular class, which you will be, obviously, like, all of your items, 99% of them are for that class. So there's no incentive to roll another character because you're starting basically from zero again, because you have to find all the items that you want. Maybe you found, like, you're playing a barb and you find gloves of the Illuminator or something, and you go, oh, okay, these look cool. I want to make a fireball specific sorceress that uses these gloves. You then have to level the sorceress from 1 to 80 before the build comes online. So you're effectively playing either a suboptimal or an entirely different build you probably don't want to play because you need to play it in order to progress. Also, you can get to this arbitrary requirement of level 80 to equip all this cool sick shit that you found. And no one does that. It decentivizes you immediately. No one can be asked to make ults. Now the armory system won't completely fix that. Although it does if you're like someone who likes playing a lot of the same class. Like at the moment, I've got, for Last Epoch, I'm on my second rogue build. I'm going to do a third rogue build before I look at other stuff. But that's mostly for content and convenience. But like, when I play PoE or Last Epoch, I have leveling gear. I found uniques that can be equipped from level 0. The Cold Flask build that I'm doing on the rogue right now is like a game. It's an item rather that lasts throughout the game, throughout my character's progress, all the way through to end game. I can equip it immediately because I found it. It has no level requirement. I equip it immediately, and the build that I want to play starts immediately. Obviously, you have to develop it and grow it as you level up and get more points, but you're already working towards it. In Diablo 4, you're doing 80 levels of chore work to then play the board that you actually want to play. So with the armory system, at the very least, you'll be able to be like, okay, I've got 4 barb builds that I really enjoy. I don't want to make 4 entirely new barbs to do it. You can just bounce between them. So that will ease some of the friction, but ultimately the world tier system needs to change. The itemization needs to change. The skill system needs to change. The Paragon system needs to change. So much needs to change. It all ties in with each other. I have many, many thoughts. Subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, so you can see the review.
Yeah, and this is on top of like some of the.
I like things about Diablo 4, to be clear as well.
Like, hey,
there are things. There's just
like
the good, the bad, and then the horrifically ugly.
Working on things and stuff, and we'll have more info to share here soon on those aspects. I'll end on this. This one's a good one for Mr. Adam Jackson.
Sure.
Because this specifically talks about the Necromancer.
Adam just needs to go to bed.
The changes that are coming. This is from First Time Cheddar. Why would you guys remove damage from Death's Reach's passive? Is that contrary to the no nerfs policy you had mentioned for mid-season updates? Why didn't you just add speed on top of the damage?
Yeah, I would say one, as far as like comparing damage to move speed, I think it's a pretty clear winner that move speed is a better stat and has more power than damage in our game. I think when we think about necromancers in general, even across the game in general, we undervalued move speed as far as how strong it is. Like we knew it was strong and good, but we didn't realize just how important and like almost one-dimensional move speed. If you have the option to teleport or move faster or get something,
they should have known that. He's right, but they should have also known that. Every action RPG prioritizes speed, because the faster you can move, the faster you can clear, the faster you get loot, the more efficient it is, it's optimal, blah, blah, blah. Every single action RPG, everyone always prioritizes like movement speed or mobility at the very least in like their top 3 things. Like damage, maybe crit, depending on the build, and movement speed. It's almost always those things. So the fact that that surprised them is, again, it goes into the whole like, look at the fucking genre, boys. Like, do some homework. You should have known that.
Quickly, that matters more than pretty much every other stat once you get to a point where you can kill things quickly, right? So as far as why didn't we just like add move speed on top of the damage? Generally, when it comes to our passives, we try to keep our passives,
that is damage as well. Because if it's on the
designed
minions,
of,
the
like,
minions
this is
can
what
get
the passive
faster
does,
to
and it's all
mobs
themed
quicker, and it
together
is
and
inherently more
like
damage.
makes sense in a specific way. So we try not to have a lot of different effects on a single passive, or even ones that are like very disparate that don't really make sense to be together. And I think like moving quickly and having damage to distant enemies doesn't like, you know, you move quickly to close distance, not to stay distant more
Also
often
true.
than not, because you're moving forward through a dungeon.
Plus distant enemies is a shit tactics.
Yeah, that was just a call that we made. Like it's something we can very easily add damage back to the Necromancer in a more general way too, which we do.
Different ways, but yes.
Yeah, you know, we add damage in a bunch of different places. Like damage is very easy to add, whereas move speed not so much. So we thought that the passive slot was a really good way because we really wanted just a generic passive. The Barbarian, I believe, also has one now that just gives you more move speed, so you can just go through the game better.
Yeah.
So we felt like it was just a better choice for the class. And
Yeah,
like,
it's
I don't
not
think
enough.
that too many people are
enough.
going to miss damage to distant as much because it's way more niche than something that's just generically strong like move speed. And you know, if Necromancers need damage, we have a million places we can add them back. I'm not too worried about that.
Awesome. And you had mentioned like even like Necromancers are getting because a lot of these mid-season updates themselves are related to minions, and a lot more changes are even coming in Season 4. You had mentioned beforehand as well. So
yeah, I think it's important to maybe address the other part of like, did we see this as kind of going back on our promise to not nerf things?
Well, no, because it's not enough.
You know, so I think this is why we kind of resist the urge generally in mid-season patches to redesign things completely, because then it's kind of a crapshoot. Like, is it a buff? Is it a nerf? If it's a redesign and it could be seen poorly. We just feel like in this case, move speed is such a clear win that we were willing to do that. But we're open to the feedback, and you know, if this is too risky to the players and they don't like that, then we're willing to bend on that.
Yeah, they're right on that one.
We just felt like this was kind of an open and shut case.
It is.
cool. Well,
Anyone who thinks otherwise is
thank you
literally
guys
just
very much
doesn't know what they're talking about.
The insight and the info on the mid-season update, and of course Gauntlet. Again, thank you again to Macro Bioboy and Anna K. Clyde for joining us, and our 3 devs, John, Steven, and Liam for jumping in and playing through. Again, Gauntlet is coming out with 133, which is our mid-season update. That will be hitting next Tuesday on March 5th, so players will be able to actually jump in, check out Gauntlet. We're really looking forward to seeing the feedback for the first couple weeks, and letting us know like, hey, are there any tweaks and stuff like that that we can end up doing? We'll be monitoring that from that end. Another thing that we'll be monitoring is the question we asked earlier, that Adam had asked earlier about how people want to see
everyone's
specific
dying.
updates.
Send the devs
happen
to
with
the
bosses
hospital,
and,
quick.
And that you guys may have. So, like, by all means, have those conversations on various community channels. We'll be checking those out. Let us know what you guys actually think. And just a reminder, Diablo 4 is coming to Game Pass later this. I almost said later this. It's 2/29. It's a leap year day, by the way. It is
Diablo
not
4 is coming to
yet.
Game Pass as well.
Bamboozled. But it's coming later in
Does
March.
that mean
It'll be on March 28th.
if I play it on Game Pass,
players will be able to.
I don't have to pay for the expansion? Because at the moment, that's the only way I'm going to play the
I'm
expansion.
really excited about that.
I'm not paying 70 to 100
patch notes
bucks.
tomorrow. We'll see you
the
guys
expansion.
then.
Blog post.
And blog post, and there's actually a blog post up right after this stream for the Gauntlet, so make sure to check that out for all the information.
Because I assume it'll
related
be
to Gauntlet before
linked
next
to your
week.
account, so you shouldn't
And of
lose
course,
or have to redo your
We'll be
renown
back
or
in a
anything
couple
like that,
weeks to talk
hopefully.
about that
If that's
PvP
the case,
Campfire chat related
sick.
to PTR and season
I've just
4.
saved $70.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you guys very much. We hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow to check out all the patch notes. So yeah.
Thank you.
Patch notes. To answer your question earlier, Aaron, I'm not going to play this season. I'm done with this season. The Gauntlet, I like the Gauntlet. I think it is a cool feature that will add some variety once there's more endgame content to choose from. But in isolation, the players are going to hate it. They're going to be like, I don't get loot only once a week, and it's one 195 item, or one 925 item. And they'll just not see it as rewarding enough because they don't understand that the entire point is just to have a big little EP-ness and be like, look how good I am at the game. But that's the entire point. It's speedrunning. I think the speedrunning community are going to love it. But that's a very niche community, which is fine. And I'm glad they're adding it. But they need to add more of other things. One, to change the perspective of the casual Andys, to realize that there is more to action RPGs other than just blasting the monsters over and over again, and giving them that choice so they can be like, oh, okay, well, I want to do Nightmare Dungeons because I just want to blast. You know what? I want to do something that's a bit more tactical, like the speedrunning Gauntlet thing. Maybe they want to do vaults because they like dodging traps and they want to have a slower paced, more skill based thing other than a build that just does big numbers and can get through everything. You know, you make different builds, and that again incites creativity, because then you're going to go, okay, here's a build that's specifically going to be good at doing the Gauntlet. Here's a build that's going to be specifically good at doing bosses. Here's a build that's going to be really good at doing or avoiding traps and stuff like that in the vaults. Here's a build that does X, Y, and Z. In the same way, in like in PoE, you've got your boss killers, you've got your delvers, you've got your sanctum builds, you've got your blight builds technically, and things like that. You know, it gives people options. And then if there's things you don't like, it's fine because you have other things to choose instead. You could be like, oh, I don't really like doing the Gauntlet stuff. I'm not into the speedrunning aspect. But I love blasting in Nightmare Dungeons, so I'm going to focus on that. I think that's something that PoE is really nailed down. I also think it's something that Last Epoch have done really well. A lot of both PoEs and Last Epoch systems allow them to iterate and expand upon the very system itself. Whereas it feels like almost every system that the D4 devs make, they make it really, really shallow because they're trying to cater to a casual audience. And it's in a very, like, it's in a walled garden or in a very concise space. And then when people are like, oh, can you expand on it? They go, oh, we can, but it's going to take forever because we basically sealed it up in a ball and now we have to undo the ball to add shit to it. Do you know what I mean? Like the skill system. In Last Epoch, they can add nodes probably very, very easily to a lot of the trees. They can add skills pretty much very easily. In PoE especially, they literally do patches where they're like, here's 20 new skills. Go ham. See what you can do with them. Here's 20 ways you can adapt those skills. Support gems. go ham, see what you can do with them. And then the players get creative, they make what they want. PoE, the last league is probably one of my favorite leagues because of the transfiguration gems and how they just made so many cool different builds. And you had one person pick one gem, another person pick the same gem, and they had distinctly unique builds. And they had different takes on it, different classes or ascendancies to work with it. One person might have converted it to poison, another person converted it to something else, etc. There's always so much player agency. Whereas in Diablo 4, everything's on rails. You're going to play Source? Okay, well, here are some builds that were already imagined by the devs, and that's pretty much all you can do. It's like 5 or 6 very specific builds, obviously. And then you're like, okay. And then they go, oh, cool. We're going to add some stuff for the Frozen Orb. It's like, well, okay. Well, now everyone who's going to play Frozen Orb is going to play the exact same build with those exact same new uniques and new legendaries. Everything is in isolation and everything is too concise and doesn't allow the player to be creative. And I think that's the problem. And that's why I think it's going to be a very long time before Diablo 4 is in a place where it can properly compete as a live service with the likes of LE and PoE. Unfortunately, I don't think many players are going to come back for Gauntlet at all. Season 4, they said in a couple of weeks we'll be getting another campfire chat. I will be watching it very closely, and depending on what they say, what they show, like if it's just Andariel as another uber unique boss or whatever, is it going to be enough? I think they need more bosses. I think, as I said earlier, they are at a disadvantage because of the expectations that have been set by like the likes of PoE. The existence of PoE is immediately a handicap to Diablo 4 because everyone's going to be like, I've got all this content in this other game. You've got fuck all. And it's valid to think that. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have the option to play a better game, you're going to, and you should. You're not going to force yourself to play the game that you don't think is compelling. And that sucks for Diablo 4 devs because they have to basically make 10 years of content. But at the same time, doesn't that probably reinforce the argument I made that they released the game too early and that they should have waited until it was more fleshed out, worked with players more, invited vastly more people into their closed test, maybe got some creators involved, things like that. I think they've started off behind and they're going to struggle to catch up. Hopefully it makes it, because the more games that are in this space, the better it will be for action RPG players as a whole. Last Epoch is proof of that. Path of Exile 2 is now getting a instant buy trade mechanic. It's getting gold for respecking, which is going to be a huge change in the dynamic for new players coming to the game. It's going to be so much more accessible just from that one change alone. And they've made those changes because Last Epoch said, look, this is how we're doing it because we think it's better. And they were right. So if we can get more things competing and going, look, this is how we do it. And then the other games can go, okay, you know what? That is a good idea. Let's adopt it, but put our own spin on it.